I pulled the trigger on 17 confirmed kills during my time as a Marine Corps sniper. 17 human beings whose last moment on Earth was framed in my scope's crosshairs. I can still see each face. I remember the wind speed, the temperature, the exact pressure I applied to that trigger. But there was an 18th target. A target I refused to eliminate. That refusal cost me my career, my reputation, and nearly my sanity. The Marine Corps declared me mentally unfit. My service record, 12 years of decorated service, was stamped with psychiatric discharge codes. My own brother stopped returning my calls. But I'd make the same choice again. Because on September 14, 2009, in the Cascade Mountains of Northern California, I watched something through my rifle scope that changed everything I thought I knew about duty, obedience, and what it means to be human. My name is Sergeant Marcus Webb, former Marine Scout Sniper. And this is the story of the target I refused to kill. The briefing came down on September 11, 2009, 8 years to the day after the towers fell. I remember thinking that was a hell of a coincidence for a domestic operation. We were stationed at Marine Corps Mountain Warfare Training Center in Bridgeport, California. My spotter, Corporal Jason Chen, and I had just finished a training rotation when Lieutenant Colonel Reeves pulled us into a classified briefing room. The room was smaller than usual, colder. Just Reeves, a man in civilian clothes who never gave his name, and a woman with a Defense Intelligence Agency badge who introduced herself only as Dr. Vance. No recording devices. No written orders. Everything verbal. That should have been my first red flag. Gentlemen, Reeves began, his voice tight, what I'm about to tell you doesn't leave this room. This is a domestic threat elimination operation under the direct authority of Homeland Security Special Operations Division. Chen and I exchanged glances. Domestic elimination operations weren't standard Marine Corps work. That was FBI hostage rescue team territory, maybe Delta Force. The civilians stepped forward, arms crossed. 2 weeks ago, a hunting party in the Marble Mountain Wilderness reported an encounter with what they described as an extremely large, aggressive humanoid figure. One hunter was killed. His body was found 3 miles from the campsite, neck broken, thrown into a ravine. Dr. Vance clicked a remote. A photograph appeared on the screen behind her. It showed a massive footprint in dried mud. 18 inches long, maybe 7 inches wide. 5 distinct toes. Local sheriff's department dismissed it as a bear attack, she continued. But there are complications. The hunter's injuries don't match any known bear attack pattern. And there's this. Another photo. A tuft of dark reddish-brown hair caught on a tree branch, at least 8 feet off the ground. DNA analysis came back inconclusive, Dr. Vance said. Primate markers, but not matching any known great ape species. Not human. Not gorilla. Not orangutan. Something else. I leaned forward. You're telling us you think Bigfoot killed someone? The civilian's expression didn't change. We're telling you there's a large, unidentified biological entity in that mountain range that has demonstrated lethal hostility toward civilians. And given the current climate, domestic terrorism concerns, militia activity in remote areas, we cannot allow an unknown threat to remain active in U.S. territory. Reeves cleared his throat. Your mission is reconnaissance and elimination. You'll insert via helicopter at 0400 hours on September 13th. You'll track the target, confirm visual identification, and eliminate with extreme prejudice. 48-hour window. Complete operational discretion. What's the rules of engagement? Chin asked. The civilian answered. Shoot on sight once positive ID is established. This is classified as an imminent threat to national security. No warning required. No capture protocol. Elimination only. I felt something cold settle in my gut. And if it's just a guy in a suit? Some prankster. Dr. Vance's face was stone. Then you'll be shooting a prankster who murdered a civilian and is impersonating a cryptid in a federal wilderness area. Either way, the threat is neutralized. Reeves handed us each a folder. Your insertion coordinates, topographical maps, and comm protocols. You'll be on a closed frequency. No outside contact except scheduled check-ins every 12 hours. Any questions? I had about 100, but the look on Reeves' face told me none of them would be answered. "No, sir," I said. "Good. Dismissed." "And gentlemen," Reeves locked eyes with each of us, "this mission never happened." "Clear." "Crystal, sir." The Black Hawk dropped us at 0423 hours on a ridgeline 6 miles northeast of the last sighting. Cold wind. Dense pine forest. The kind of darkness that swallows sound. Chen and I moved in silence, our boots crunching softly on the needle-covered ground. We'd worked together for 4 years, 2 tours in Afghanistan, countless training ops. We communicated with hand signals and the kind of telepathy you develop when your life depends on the guy next to you. By 0600, we'd established our primary observation post on a rocky outcropping overlooking a valley basin. Good sight lines. Clear fields of fire out to 800 meters. Water source visible below, a narrow creek cutting through the valley floor. Chen set up the spotting scope while I assembled my M40A3 rifle. Match-grade ammunition. Each round hand-selected for consistency. At this altitude, I'd need to account for thinner air, cooler temperatures. "So," Chen whispered, glassing the valley, "we're really hunting Bigfoot." "We're hunting an unidentified target," I corrected. "An unidentified target with 18-inch feet that snapped a man's neck like a twig." I didn't respond. I was checking my scope 0, making micro-adjustments. "You believe in this stuff?" Chen asked. "Sasquatch, cryptids, all that?" I thought about it. "I believe in what I can see through my scope. Everything else is speculation." "Fair enough." We settled into the familiar rhythm of observation. Scan, assess, record. Hours passed. The sun rose, filtering through the canopy in golden shafts. Deer moved through the valley. A black bear, maybe 300 pounds, ambled past at 0947 hours. Nothing unusual. By 1400 hours, Chen was getting antsy. Maybe it moved on. Maybe it was just passing through. Maybe. But my instincts said otherwise. Something felt off about this valley. The way the birds avoided the northern section. The lack of small game near the creek bend. At 1623 hours, Chen stiffened. "Marcus. Movement. 11 o'clock. 600 meters." I swung my rifle smoothly, settling into the scope. At first, I thought it was a bear. Large, dark shape moving through the underbrush near the creek. Then it stood up. "Jesus Christ," Chen breathed. It was massive. 8 feet tall, maybe more. Broad shoulders, long arms, covered in dark reddish-brown fur. It moved on 2 legs with an easy, confident gait. Not the lumber of a bear, but something closer to human. But it wasn't human. Through my scope, I could see its face. Pronounced brow ridge, flat nose, deep-set eyes. Primate features, but not quite ape, not quite human. Something in between. "That's our target," I said quietly. Chen was scribbling notes, his voice tight with adrenaline. Height approximately 8 feet 3 inches. Estimated weight 600 to 700 pounds. Bipedal locomotion. Subject appears to be foraging. The creature was kneeling by the creek now, reaching into the water. It pulled out a rock, examining it, then tossed it aside. Then another. Methodical. Deliberate. "It's looking for something," I murmured. Chen radioed in our first check-in, keeping his voice low. "Overwatch to base. We have positive visual on target. Confirming unidentified large primate entity. Awaiting instructions." Static. Then, base to Overwatch. Confirm elimination authorization. Engage at your discretion. Repeat, engage at your discretion. My finger rested on the trigger guard. Not on the trigger. Not yet. "Wind's calm," Chen said, reading the environment. Range 612 meters. Temperature 64 degrees. "You've got a clear shot." I watched the creature through my scope. It had found what it was looking for, some kind of root or plant. It sat on a large boulder, examining its find, turning it over in its massive hands. "Marcus," Chen prompted. "You've got the shot." I did. Perfect conditions. Steady platform. Target stationary. But something made me hesitate. The way it moved. The way it examined that root with what looked like curiosity, intelligence. This wasn't an animal acting on instinct. "Marcus." "Stand by," I said quietly. The creature suddenly went still, its head turning sharply toward the north. Alert. Listening. Then it stood and moved swiftly into the forest, disappearing into the dense undergrowth. "Target's mobile," Chen reported. "Lost visual." I exhaled slowly, releasing the tension in my shoulders. "Why didn't you take the shot?" Chen asked. "Timing wasn't right," I said. But that wasn't true, and we both knew it. We tracked the creature for the next 18 hours. It moved through the wilderness with incredible stealth for something so large, leaving minimal sign. A broken branch here. A partial print in soft earth there. At 1034 hours on September 14th, we found something that changed everything. A clearing. Maybe 40 feet across. And in the center, freshly disturbed earth arranged in a deliberate pattern. "That's a grave," Chen said, his voice barely a whisper. He was right. The earth was mounded, stones arranged around the perimeter. And at the head of the grave, a crude marker, 2 thick branches lashed together with fibrous vine. A cross. "Animals don't bury their dead like this," Chen said. I moved closer, examining the site. The grave was recent, maybe a day old. The earth still dark and moist. And there, pressed into the soft dirt around the grave, were the unmistakable 18-inch prints. "It buried someone," I said. "Or something." Chen was scanning the tree line, his weapon ready. "This changes things, doesn't it?" Before I could answer, I heard it. Vocalization. Low, mournful, coming from the north end of the clearing. We both dropped into firing positions, weapons raised. The creature emerged from the trees slowly. It was carrying something wrapped in large leaves, some kind of bundle. It moved toward the gravesite, and that's when I saw its face clearly for the first time. Through my scope, I could see tear tracks in the fur beneath its eyes. It was crying. The creature knelt at the grave, placing the bundle gently at the foot of the cross marker. Then it sat back, and a sound came from its chest that I'll never forget, a deep, keening wail that echoed through the valley. Grief. Pure, unmistakable grief. "Marcus," Chen whispered urgently. "We've got our shot. Target's stationary. Range 240 meters. My crosshairs were centered on the creature's chest. Right where the heart would be. Perfect killing shot. My finger rested on the trigger. The creature began to vocalize, not the wailing now, but something else. Rhythmic. Patterned. Almost like, "Is it speaking?" Chen asked, disbelief in his voice. It sounded like language. Not English, not any human language I'd ever heard, but structured. Deliberate. The creature was speaking to the grave, its massive hands gesturing, its voice rising and falling with what sounded like emotion, meaning. Through my scope, I watched it reach down and touch the earth of the grave gently, reverently. This wasn't an animal. This was a person. A person mourning someone they loved. "Marcus, we need to." "Stand down," I said quietly. "What?" I said stand down, Chen. "We have our orders. Eliminate on sight." "That's not a target." My voice was steady, but my hands were shaking. "That's someone burying their dead. Someone grieving. It killed a hunter." "We don't know that. We don't know anything except what we're seeing right now. And what I'm seeing is someone at a funeral." The creature stood, placing one final stone on the grave. Then it turned and looked directly toward our position. For a moment, just a moment, our eyes met through the scope. Intelligence. Awareness. Recognition. It knew we were there. It held my gaze for 3 long seconds, then turned and walked slowly back into the forest. I lowered my rifle. "Marcus, what the hell are you doing?" "I'm not shooting that," I said firmly. "Whatever that is, it's not a threat. It's a grieving family member at a burial site." Chen stared at me. "We have orders. Orders to eliminate an imminent threat. That's not a threat. That's—" I struggled for words. "That's someone's father, or brother, or— I don't know. But I'm not executing someone at their family's grave. They're going to court-martial you." "Probably." Chen was silent for a long moment. Then, "For what it's worth, I think you're right. That wasn't an animal. That was something else." "Yeah," I said quietly, staring at the grave in the clearing. "Something else." The 12-hour check-in came at 2,200 hours. Chen and I had relocated to a secondary observation post, maintaining visual on the clearing and the gravesite. The creature hadn't returned. "Overwatch to base," Chen transmitted. "Reporting status. Target identified and tracked. No engagement at this time." Static. Then a different voice, not our usual comm officer. The civilian from the briefing. "Overwatch, this is Command Authority. Explain, no engagement. You have clear authorization." Chen looked at me. I took the radio. "Command Authority, this is Overwatch 1. Target has not presented as an imminent threat. Observing protocol for threat assessment before engagement." A long pause. "Overwatch 1, your orders are explicit. Eliminate on site. There is no assessment protocol. Confirm. Do you have visual on target?" "Negative. Target is mobile. We're tracking. When you reacquire, you will engage immediately. This is not a request." "Confirm." I looked at Chen. His face was tight, conflicted. "Overwatch 1, confirm your orders." I pressed the transmit button. "Negative. Command Authority. I will not engage a non-hostile target conducting what appears to be a burial ceremony. Target has demonstrated intelligence, language, and peaceful behavior. Request mission reassessment." The silence that followed was deadly. Then, "Overwatch 1, you are in direct violation of a lawful order. You will engage the target upon visual contact or you will be relieved of duty and face court-martial. Do you understand?" "I understand. But I'm not shooting someone at their family's grave. If that's a court-martial, so be it." Chen closed his eyes. "Jesus, Marcus." The radio crackled again. Lieutenant Colonel Reeves this time, his voice hard as steel. "Sergeant Webb, this is Reeves. You will execute your orders or I will have you extracted and arrested for insubordination in a combat theater. You have 1 hour to comply." Reeves out. The radio went dead. Chen sat back against the rocks. "Combat theater? We're in California. Doesn't matter. They classified this as a national security operation. That gives them authority. What are you going to do?" I looked down at the clearing, barely visible in the moonlight. At the grave marker, that crude cross made of branches. "I'm going to do what's right. Marcus, they'll destroy you. Dishonorable discharge, maybe prison time for disobeying orders in the field." "I know. Why? Why are you willing to throw away everything for this?" I was quiet for a moment, gathering my thoughts. "You remember Afghanistan? That village outside Sanjin?" Chen nodded slowly. "The compound where we thought we had Taliban leadership." "Yeah. We called in the airstrike. I painted the target. F-18s dropped 2 dams right on top of it." "It was a wedding party," Chen said quietly. 17 civilians. 17 people who looked like enemies through our intelligence reports and thermal imaging. But they were just families celebrating. And we killed them because we followed orders without questioning whether those orders were based on truth." I gestured toward the clearing. "That creature down there has done nothing but bury its dead and mourn. And we're ordered to kill it because someone in an office decided it's a threat based on incomplete information and fear. I'm not doing that again. I can't. Chen stared at me for a long moment. Then he nodded. Okay. Okay, what? Okay, I'm with you. If they're court-martialing you, they're court-martialing both of us. Chen, you don't have to. Yeah, I do. You're right. That thing down there isn't a monster. And I'm not going to be part of killing it because someone's scared of what they don't understand. I clasped his shoulder. Thank you, brother. Don't thank me yet. We've still got to survive the next hour. At 2,247 hours, I made a decision that would seal my fate. I'm going down there, I told Chen. What? Marcus, that's insane. If they send another team, that creature doesn't stand a chance. Someone who will follow orders without question. I need to warn it. Warn it? How? You think it speaks English? It buried its dead with a cross. It's been exposed to human culture somehow. Maybe it understands more than we think. Chen grabbed my arm. And if you're wrong? If it's the thing that killed that hunter and it decides you're a threat, then I guess I'll find out if it's really hostile. I stripped off my pack, keeping only my sidearm and a flashlight. If I'm not back in 30 minutes, radio for extraction. Tell them I went rogue. You tried to stop me. Don't let them take you down with me. Marcus. That's an order, Corporal. I moved down the slope before he could argue further, using the moonlight to navigate the rocky terrain. My heart was hammering, adrenaline singing through my veins. This was either the bravest or the stupidest thing I'd ever done. Probably both. I reached the clearing in 12 minutes. The grave was exactly as we'd left it, the cross marker standing silent in the darkness. I approached slowly, hands visible, weapon holstered. I don't know if you can understand me, I said quietly to the empty forest. But if you can hear me, you need to listen. They're going to send people to kill you. More people. People who won't hesitate. Nothing. Just the sound of wind in the pines. I don't know what you are. I don't know your story. But I saw you mourning. I saw you grieve. That makes you a person in my book. And I don't kill people who aren't threats. A branch snapped behind me. I turned slowly, hand instinctively moving toward my sidearm, then forcing myself to freeze. The creature stood at the edge of the clearing, maybe 20 feet away. Up close, without the scope between us, it was even more massive. 8.5 feet tall, easily. Shoulders broad as a doorway. But its eyes, those deep-set, dark eyes, held intelligence and wariness. We stared at each other. I'm not here to hurt you, I said, keeping my voice calm, my hands visible. I'm here to warn you. The creature tilted its head slightly, studying me. Then it did something that made my blood run cold. It spoke. Warn. The word was guttural, rough, like vocal cords not designed for human speech forcing out English phonemes. But unmistakable. You understand me? The creature nodded slowly. Once. Jesus Christ, I breathed. How long have you been listening to humans? It didn't answer. Instead, it moved closer, each step deliberate, non-threatening. It stopped about 10 feet away, towering over me. This close, I could see the details. The reddish-brown fur was flecked with gray. Scars across its chest and arms, old wounds, long-healed. Its face was weathered, lined. This wasn't a young creature. It raised one massive hand and pointed at the grave. Son, it said, the word painful and slow. My son. The grief in its voice was unmistakable. I'm sorry, I said, and meant it. I'm so sorry for your loss. The creature's eyes held mine. Then it pointed at me. You, no kill. No. I won't kill you. Others. Yes. Others will come. They're afraid of you. They think you're dangerous. The creature made a sound, something between a growl and a sigh. It turned toward the grave, placing one massive hand on the earth. Humans always fear, it said haltingly. Always kill what they fear. Not always, I said. Some of us are trying to do better. It looked back at me, and something passed between us. Understanding, maybe. Recognition that we were both soldiers in our own way, caught in conflicts we didn't fully control. You go, the creature said. They come for you too. I know. Why you stay? I looked at the grave, at that crude cross. Because someone needs to try to stop this. Because what happened to your son, whatever happened, doesn't mean you should die too. The creature studied me for a long moment. Then it reached into the fur at its side and pulled something out, a small object, wrapped in leaves. It held it out to me. I approached cautiously and took it. Unwrapping the leaves, I found a stone, smooth, dark, with white veining, deliberately carved with symbols I didn't recognize. From my son, the creature said. He make for humans. Want peace. Want. Its voice broke. It couldn't finish. I understood. Its son had wanted peace between their species and ours. And somehow, that desire had gotten him killed. I'll keep it safe, I promised. I'll tell your story. I'll tell people you're not monsters. The creature nodded. Then it did something that will haunt me forever. It placed one massive hand on my shoulder, gently, carefully, with a kind of restraint that spoke of incredible self-control. A gesture of gratitude, of respect. You good man, it said. Rare thing. Then it turned and vanished into the forest, moving with impossible silence for something so large. I stood alone in the clearing, holding the carved stone, tears streaming down my face. The helicopter came at 0134 hours. 2 Blackhawks, running lights dark, tactical teams aboard. Chen and I were waiting at the extraction point, weapons laid down, hands visible. Lieutenant Colonel Reeves was first off the bird, followed by 4 MPs with flex cuffs and M4S at the ready. Sergeant Webb, Corporal Chen, you are both under arrest for failure to obey a lawful order and dereliction of duty in a combat zone, Reeves barked. Weapons on the ground. Hands behind your heads. Now. We complied. As they cuffed me, Reeves leaned close. What the hell were you thinking, Webb? I was thinking I'm not a murderer, sir. That thing killed a civilian. Did it? Or did that civilian stumble onto something he shouldn't have and someone decided the easiest solution was to eliminate the witness and the problem? Reeves's jaw tightened. You're in a world of trouble, Sergeant. I know, sir. But I can live with myself. They loaded us onto the helicopter. As we lifted off, I looked down at the valley, at the clearing now disappearing into the darkness. I wondered if the creature was watching. If it understood that I just sacrificed everything to give it a chance to survive. I hoped so. The flight back was silent. At Bridgeport, they separated Chan and me, putting us in different holding cells. I didn't see him again for 3 days. On the 3rd day, they moved me to Camp Pendleton for formal court-martial proceedings. The charges were extensive. Failure to obey a lawful order. Dereliction of duty. Conduct prejudicial to good order and discipline. They were pushing for dishonorable discharge and 5 years in Leavenworth. My attorney, a young JAG officer named Lieutenant Morrison, laid it out plainly. They've got you dead to rights on the insubordination charge. You admitted on a recorded radio transmission that you were refusing a direct order. The only defense we have is temporary insanity or extreme emotional disturbance. I wasn't insane. Then you're looking at Leavenworth. What about Chen? Morrison hesitated. Corporal Chen is cooperating with the prosecution. He's testifying that you exhibited erratic behavior and that he attempted to talk you down from your refusal. In exchange, they're dropping his charges to insubordination with a reduction in rank and administrative separation. I felt relief wash over me. Good. He shouldn't go down with me. You're not angry he's testifying against you? I ordered him to save himself. I'm glad he listened. Morrison studied me. You really believe you did the right thing, don't you? I know I did. Even if it costs you everything? I thought about the creature in the clearing. About the carved stone they'd confiscated from me during processing. About those words, "You good man. Rare thing." "Yeah," I said. Even then. The court-martial was closed to the public. Classified proceedings due to the nature of the operation. 5 officers on the panel. None of them looked sympathetic. The prosecution's case was straightforward. They played the radio transmissions. They showed my refusal was clear, conscious, and deliberate. They brought in Reeves to testify about my insubordination. They conveniently left out any mention of what the target actually was. In the official record, I'd refused to eliminate a high-value domestic threat target of unspecified nature. No mention of Bigfoot. No mention of burial ceremonies or grieving or spoken words. Just a sergeant who refused a lawful order. When it was my turn to testify, Morrison advised me to express remorse and claim emotional disturbance. Instead, I told the truth. I refused the order because the target was not an imminent threat. It was conducting a burial ceremony for what I believe was a family member. It demonstrated intelligence, language capability, and peaceful behavior. Engaging that target would have been an execution, not a military necessity. The prosecutor pounced. "Sergeant Webb, are you claiming you encountered a speaking creature in the California wilderness?" "Yes, sir." "A Bigfoot?" "A Sasquatch?" "I don't know what the proper term is, sir. But yes, a large bipedal primate that demonstrated clear intelligence and language use." Murmurs in the courtroom. The panel members exchanged glances. "And this creature spoke to you in English?" "Broken English, yes, sir. Limited vocabulary, but clear communication." "Sergeant Webb, do you understand how this sounds?" "I understand it sounds unbelievable, sir. But it's the truth." The prosecutor smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. "The truth is, Sergeant, that you experienced a psychological break in the field and refused a lawful order based on a delusion. You saw an animal and projected human characteristics onto it because you couldn't handle the mission parameters." "That's not what happened." "Then explain this, Sergeant. If this creature was so intelligent and peaceful, why did it kill a civilian hunter 2 weeks before your mission?" "I don't know that it did, sir. I only know what I witnessed. And what I witnessed was a person mourning their dead, not a threat to national security." The prosecutor turned to the panel. "Gentlemen, the defense wants you to believe that Sergeant Webb refused orders because he discovered a speaking Sasquatch conducting a funeral. The more likely explanation, the only rational explanation, is that Sergeant Webb suffered a psychological breakdown and is now constructing an elaborate justification for his failure to execute his duties." He let that hang in the air. The Marine Corps cannot tolerate insubordination in the field, regardless of the excuse. Sergeant Webb's refusal to follow orders put his spotter at risk, compromised the mission, and set a dangerous precedent. He must be held accountable. Morrison did his best in closing arguments, emphasizing my 12 years of exemplary service, my combat record, my decorations. But the evidence was clear. I'd refused a direct order. Everything else was noise. The panel deliberated for 4 hours. When they returned, their faces told me everything I needed to know. "Sergeant Marcus Webb, this court-martial finds you guilty of all charges. You are hereby sentenced to reduction in rank to private, forfeiture of all pay and allowances, confinement for 18 months, and a dishonorable discharge from the United States Marine Corps." Morrison stood immediately. "The defense requests psychiatric evaluation and possible sentence reduction based on diminished capacity." The presiding officer cut him off. "Request denied. This court finds that Sergeant Webb's testimony indicates he was fully aware of his actions and their consequences. He made a conscious choice to disobey orders. Sentence stands." The gavel fell. Just like that, 12 years of service were erased. I was no longer a Marine. I was a prisoner. The Marine Corps brig at Camp Pendleton became my home for the next 18 months. A 6-by-8-foot cell, a steel bunk, a toilet, and a sink. 23 hours of lockdown, 1 hour of exercise in a caged yard. The other prisoners gave me a wide berth. Word had gotten around that I was the sniper who claimed he'd talked to Bigfoot. Some thought I was crazy. Others thought I was a coward who'd invented an excuse for refusing to pull the trigger. Nobody believed me. The nights were the hardest. Lying on that thin mattress, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything in my mind. The creature's face. The grief in its voice. The carved stone they'd taken from me during processing. Evidence they claimed, though evidence of what, they never specified. I wondered if the creature had escaped. If more teams had been sent. If somewhere in those mountains, there was another grave marker, this one for a father who'd only wanted to mourn his son in peace. 3 months into my sentence, I got my first visitor. I was expecting Morrison, or maybe my ex-wife coming to finalize the divorce papers she'd filed 2 weeks after my conviction. Instead, a man in his 60s with silver hair and a Department of Fish and Wildlife badge sat down across from me in the visiting room. "Sergeant Webb," he said, his voice quiet. "My name is Dr. Thomas Garrett. I'm a wildlife biologist, and I need to talk to you about what you saw in the Marble Mountains." I leaned back, wary. "You a psychiatrist? Here to evaluate the crazy Marine?" "No. I'm here because I believe you." That got my attention. Garrett pulled out a folder, sliding it across the table. Inside were photographs, footprint casts, hair samples, blurry trail camera images of large, bipedal figures moving through forests. For 30 years, I've been documenting evidence of what the scientific community refuses to acknowledge, Garrett said. A relict hominid population in the Pacific Northwest. Gigantopithecus descendant, most likely, that survived the Pleistocene extinction and adapted to temperate forest environments. Bigfoot, I said. Sasquatch, Sayakoi, Tsiatko. They have different names in different regions. But yes, essentially what the popular culture calls Bigfoot. He tapped the folder. "They're real, Sergeant. And they're dying out. Why are you telling me this?" "Because you're the first military personnel to encounter one and refuse to kill it. You're the first person to have a documented conversation with one. And you're the first person to pay the price for choosing their life over your career." Garrett's eyes were intense. "That matters. That means something. It cost me everything. I know. And I'm sorry. But I need you to understand, what you did saved more than one life. 3 days after your arrest, the operation was shut down. No more kill teams were sent. The official report classified the entire incident as a failed operation based on faulty intelligence and operator error. Operator error. That's me. Yes. But it also meant they stopped hunting. The family you encountered, they're still out there." I felt something crack open in my chest. Relief. Grief. Validation. It had a family, a small clan. Maybe 6 individuals. The son you saw buried, we think he was killed by that hunter in self-defense. The hunter stumbled onto their territory, panicked, fired shots. The son was trying to drive him away, not kill him. But the hunter died in the encounter, and the Defense Department decided the easiest solution was elimination. They were going to wipe out an entire family because of a mistake? "Because of fear," Garrett corrected. "Fear of the unknown. Fear of what acknowledging their existence would mean. Indigenous hominid species with human-level intelligence, living in U.S. territory? The legal implications alone are staggering. Endangered species protections, land rights, treaty negotiations. So it's easier to just kill them and pretend they don't exist." Exactly. I stared at the photographs. A massive footprint in snow. A dark figure visible between trees. Evidence of a species we refused to acknowledge because acknowledgement was too complicated. "Why are you really here, Dr. Garrett?" He hesitated. Then, "Because in 7 months, you'll be released. And when you are, I want you to come work with me. I run a private research foundation dedicated to documenting and protecting these populations. We need people who understand them. People who've seen them for what they are, not monsters, not myths, but people. I'm a convicted felon with a dishonorable discharge. What possible use could I be? You're a man who sacrificed everything to protect someone who couldn't protect themselves. That's exactly the kind of person we need. He slid a business card across the table. Think about it. When you get out, call me. Then he was gone, leaving me alone with the photographs and the first spark of hope I'd felt in months. I walked out of the brig on March 3, 2011, with $143 in my account, the clothes on my back, and nowhere to go. My brother had stopped answering my calls. My ex-wife had moved to Arizona with her new husband. The few friends I'd had in the Corps had ghosted me after the conviction. I was 34 years old, dishonorably discharged, unemployable for any job requiring security clearance or background checks. I was alone. I found a cheap motel in Oceanside and spent 3 days staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out what the hell I was supposed to do with the rest of my life. On the 4th day, I called the number on Garrett's card. He answered on the second ring. Sergeant Webb. I was hoping you'd call. It's just Marcus now. I'm not a sergeant anymore. You'll always be a sergeant to the people who matter. Can you be in Eureka by tomorrow? California. Yes. I have something to show you. Something you need to see. I had nothing else. No other prospects. No other future. I'll be there, I said. Garrett picked me up at a bus station in Eureka and drove us north into the coastal mountains. We drove for 3 hours on increasingly remote roads until we reached a research station hidden deep in old-growth forest. This is the Northwest Hominid Research Foundation, Garrett explained as we walked into the main building. Privately funded. Completely independent from government oversight. We document, we study, and above all, we protect. The building was filled with equipment, trail cameras, audio recording gear, plaster casting materials. Maps covered the walls, marked with colored pins indicating sighting locations, territorial ranges, migration patterns. How many are there? I asked. We estimate between 200 and 400 individuals across Washington, Oregon, and Northern California. Scattered family groups. They're critically endangered, genetic bottleneck, habitat loss, and the occasional human encounter that ends badly. He led me to a back room where a large topographical map dominated one wall. A section of the Marble Mountain Wilderness was circled in red. The family you encountered, Garrett said, pointing. They're still there. We've been monitoring them from a distance. 6 individuals. They've been relatively stable since the military operation ended. I stared at the map, my heart pounding. The father? The one who spoke to me. Still alive. We've confirmed visual sightings as recently as 2 weeks ago. Something fierce and protective surged through me. What do you need me to do? Help us protect them. Monitor their territory. Document their behavior. And most importantly, intervene if another situation like the Hunter incident occurs. We need someone who understands them. Someone they might trust. They have no reason to trust humans. They have one reason, Garrett said quietly. You. It took 6 weeks of careful, patient work before I saw them again. I'd been living in a small cabin on the edge of their territory, hiking the same trails, leaving small offerings of food at neutral locations. Apples, nuts, dried fish. Never approaching. Never threatening. Just present. Garrett had taught me the basics. Respect their space. Move slowly. Make yourself predictable. They're watching you, he'd said. They've probably been watching since the first day. They'll decide when, or if, they want to make contact. On April 17, 2011, they decided. I was sitting on a fallen log near the creek where I'd first seen the father mourning his son. The sun was setting, painting the forest in gold and shadow. A branch snapped behind me. I didn't turn around. Didn't reach for a weapon. I wasn't carrying one anymore. Just waited. Heavy footsteps. The scent of earth and pine and something wild. Then a presence beside me. Massive, silent. The father sat down on the log, maybe 6 feet away. We didn't speak for a long time. Just sat together, Two people who'd both lost everything and were trying to figure out how to keep going. Finally he spoke, his voice still rough and halting, but clearer than before. You came back. Yeah. I came back. Why? I thought about how to explain it. Because I made you a promise. I said I'd tell your story. I said I'd try to protect you. I don't break promises. He turned to look at me, those deep-set eyes studying my face. You paid for this. They punished you. They did. Sorry. Don't be. It was worth it. He made a sound, something between a grunt and a sigh. Then he reached into the fur at his side and pulled out something familiar. The carved stone. The one his son had made. They took this from me, I said, stunned. How did you? Found it. Your people, they throw things away. Leave behind. He pressed it into my hand. This is yours now. Gift. From my son. From me. I closed my fingers around the stone, feeling its weight, its smooth surface. Thank you. We sat in silence again. Then the father spoke, his voice carrying a weight I hadn't heard before. My son, his name was K2, means gentle. He was gentle. Wanted to understand humans. Wanted peace. His voice cracked. He found a human in our territory. Young human, scared, with loud stick that makes death. K2 tried to calm him. Tried to show no harm. The hunter shot him. Yes. Many times. K2 ran. Fell. Human ran too. Fell also. Both died. He placed a massive hand over his chest. K2 died trying to help. Human died from fear. Both dead because of misunderstanding. The tragedy of it hit me like a physical blow. Two people dead because they couldn't understand each other. Because fear overrode reason. I'm sorry, I said, inadequate words for an impossible grief. You are different, the father said. You saw me cry. You could have killed me. But you chose not to. Why? I thought about Sanjin. About the wedding party we destroyed because we couldn't see past our fear and our orders. About all the ways humans hurt each other and anything we don't understand. Because I've seen what happens when we choose fear over compassion, I said. I've seen what happens when we kill first and ask questions never. And I'm tired of it. I'm tired of being part of the cruelty. The father nodded slowly. Good answer. He stood, towering over me in the fading light. Then he did something unexpected. He offered me his hand, palm up, in an unmistakably human gesture. I stood and placed my hand in his. His hand dwarfed mine, rough and calloused, strong enough to crush bone. But his grip was gentle, respectful. You are, friend, he said carefully, testing the word. First human friend. I'm honored. We watch you. If you need help, we come. If we need help, he paused. You come. Always, I promised. Always. He released my hand and stepped back. Then he spoke in his own language. Deep, resonant syllables I didn't understand. But I felt their meaning in my bones. Gratitude. Respect. Connection. Then he was gone, melting into the forest like a shadow. I stood alone in the clearing, holding the carved stone, tears streaming down my face. For the first time since my court-martial, I felt like I'd found my purpose again. That was 14 years ago. I'm 48 now. Still working with Garrett's foundation, still monitoring and protecting the family in the Marble Mountains. They've grown, 2 young ones born in the years since. The father, whose name I learned is Takoda, it means friend to all, has become something like family to me. I see him maybe once a month. We don't always talk. Sometimes we just sit together, sharing the silence. But in those moments, I understand something most people never get the chance to learn. Intelligence isn't uniquely human. Compassion isn't uniquely human. The capacity for love, for grief, for hope, none of that belongs exclusively to us. We share this world with people who look different, who speak different languages, who live in ways we don't understand. And we have a choice in how we respond to that difference. We can choose fear. We can choose to eliminate what we don't understand, to simplify the complicated, to reduce the unknown to a target in our crosshairs. Or we can choose to lower the weapon, to listen, to recognize that the face in our scope is a person with a family, a history, a heart that breaks just like ours. I think about that choice every day. I think about the 17 confirmed kills I made during my service. 17 people whose lives ended because I followed orders without question. I'll carry those faces forever. But I also think about the 18th target, the one I refused to kill. Some people say I threw away my career for nothing, that I sacrificed everything for a myth, a delusion, a moment of weakness. But I know the truth. I sacrificed my career to save a person. A father who'd just buried his son. A member of a species we're too afraid to acknowledge, too proud to protect. And I'd make that choice again. Every single time. Because the moment you stop seeing the humanity or personhood in the being before you, the moment you reduce a thinking, feeling individual to just a target, just a threat, just an obstacle to eliminate, that's the moment you lose your own humanity. I learned that lesson in San Jin when we killed 17 innocent people at a wedding. I refuse to repeat it in the Marble Mountains. My name is Marcus Webb, former Marine Scout sniper, convicted felon, dishonorably discharged, and the man who looked through his scope at a grieving father and chose compassion over obedience. They took my rank. They took my honor. They took my career. But they couldn't take my conscience. In the end, that's all that really matters. I keep Ketu's carved stone on my desk. Dark gray, with white veining like rivers across stone. The symbols etched into its surface remain a mystery. Takoda says they're a form of prayer, a wish for peace between our peoples. Some wishes take longer than others to come true. But I have hope. Because every time I see Takoda and his family thriving in their mountains, every time the young ones peer at me from the safety of the trees with curiosity instead of fear, every time I protect their territory from developers or hunters or government agencies that still don't want to admit they exist, I know the choice I made was right. I know that one person refusing to pull the trigger can change everything. And I know that somewhere, in whatever comes after this life, a young man named Ketu who only wanted peace is resting easier because his death wasn't followed by more death, more fear, more violence. Because one sniper looked through his scope and saw a person instead of a target, and chose to be human instead of just a soldier. That's the story of the 18th target. The one I refused to kill. The choice that cost me everything and gave me something far more valuable in return.